Today, I'm going to share all about the Alveary science program. So if you're interested in hearing more about the Alveary, including a sneak peek and a flip through into their lesson guides, stick around. So one note to make and be upfront, I am not using the Alviary science program this year. I did use it last year, we did enjoy it, but I wanted to have a bit more of a richer science for this year. They have a very well developed science program, but I found that it didn't go into the science as deeply as the classical model would. Charlotte Mason has a very different approach to science. If you are interested in Charlotte Mason's approach to science, or you don't know what Charlotte Mason's approach to science is, then stick around and you will find out all about what that looks like. But the Alveary does do a very thorough science program, including lab books, and they have a variety of different types of sciences and ways they look at science. So we did enjoy it, we got a lot out of it, but what I found lacking for the type of science we wanted to do was a bit deeper into the whys behind the topics. A little bit deeper dive into the, chemistry, biology, mechanics behind some of the topics that we would discuss, rather than more of a general overview. And Charlotte Mason's approach is really to allow students to look more deeply themselves where they're interested, as opposed to here's a textbook, here's all the answers, here's all the whys, read it, memorize it. And I really loved the beauty of Charlotte Mason's approach. But when it came down to wanting my kids to have a very strong foundation in sciences, if they choose to go into the science field as they get into university and college, I wanted them to have that. Now I know they are still young, but I wanted to begin introducing those things to them sooner. And that is the only reason why I'm not using the Alviary science. Charlotte Mason's approach was just not quite what I was looking for, but the Alviary does a beautiful job of following Charlotte Mason's approach to science. So from grades 1 to grade 8, they follow a similar general pattern to how they teach science. And then high school is a bit more of a deeper dive. I'm not going to go into the high school. If that's something that you're interested in, I can take a closer look at that for you and do a separate video. But I'm going to look at today, I'm going to show you what the lesson plan for grade 1 will be. That would be the Form 1s, and then grade 5, which would be the Form 2s. I just wanted to show you what their science looks like. Now, last year in their science program, they included what's called nature lore, natural history, general science, and then nature study. This year, they are including the nature lore in the literature guide, but they do want you to do nature lore along with your science. And I just wanted to tell you what their definition of nature lore is so that I don't get this wrong. Nature lore is timeless knowledge that is passed through a community, much like a grandmother passes on how to make that special bread when the dough just feels right. Like Mason, we strive to pass on this knowledge primarily through our outdoor work, but they also assign nature lore books, and those are included in the literature guides. And last year, the nature lore was actually included in the lesson guide with the time and the days and stuff to read that. So it's done a little bit differently this year, which I think makes it seem like an easier, more doable science program, because it did look a bit busy last year in comparison with this year. So they do nature lore, nature history, natural history, general science, and then nature walks. And what they do, so with history and geography, they group all the forms together. So there's a Form 1 geography, a Form 1 history, and so forth. With science, they actually make it grade specific. So they have very different book lists for grade 1, 2, 3, all the way up to grade 12. They are different book lists. Now the book lists haven't changed. I am not sure how often they will decide to change up the books. They may just keep them that way and for quite a period of time. And then you could pick and choose but they make them grade specific for that age group, so that they're gradually being introduced to the world around them and to science. And it's age specific ideas and concepts that they are teaching them. Now, obviously, if you have a large family, you don't want to do, or even if you have 2 children, doing 2 different sciences would be a lot. So what they recommend is that you choose the science that is most age appropriate for your child or your children, and then you would work together through all the different levels with them as a family. So you wouldn't maybe necessarily choose your oldest student and do that science. You would maybe start off at the beginning, which does sort of a broad perspective of creation and the earth and plants and animals and things like that. And then you would move through the grades and gradually progress through them and get into a deeper foundation. That's how they intend to do it if you wanted to do it as a family subject. Otherwise, they are grade-specific science courses that are very gradual and incrementally increasing in their knowledge of creation, the world, and the science concepts. From grades 1 to 3, they are doing the natural history and the general science without the lab. In grade 4, they begin including a lab book with some lab reporting, notebooking, and some experiments and activities and things like that. That begins in grade 4, and that will go all the way up, where they would be increasingly being expected to do more types of things, maybe draw graphs and tables and document their findings of different experiments and things like that. And nature study is intended, it says up to grade 8, where they want you to do once a week nature walks and then nature notebooking of your findings all on your walks. They have the, I forget the name of it, I'll put a picture of it here, the nature study guide, the common one that most Charlotte Mason homeschoolers use. And they will assign pages for you to read as a mom, not to do as a read aloud, but for you to do as a homeschooling parent, so that you can help guide your students, so that when you make these observations, you will have a little bit of insider knowledge about certain facts, so that you can kind of shape the discussion, point them to certain things. You're not telling them the facts. They don't want, Charlotte Mason didn't want you to tell them all the facts about these things, but as you make observations, you can kind of say, well, take a look at those tail feathers. What do you think about those? The shape. What do you think that the tail feathers of a bird might, be good for? Things like that. So you will read that insider knowledge in the nature study handbook, and then be able to sort of help guide the observations of your students. So that is done up until grade 8. And of course, you could always include your high school students on the nature walks, and nature journaling is always fun. And it's even encouraged that us as homeschooling parents, we continue nature journaling along with our students. So before I jump right into it though, I'm gonna just tell you the names of the books that they have selected for grade 1 and then for grade 5. And I'll post a picture here so you can take a look at it. So for grade 1 in natural history, they're going to be reading the Christian Liberty Nature Reader Book 1. For general science, they're going to be reading 6 books, and they're small books. They're kind of like picture books, and they will just get you to read passages from it over a period of time. The Secret Life of the Little Brown Bat, Over and Under the Pond, A Fruit is a Suitcase for Seeds, Winter Sleep, A Hibernation Story, A House Spider's Life, Up in the Garden and Down in the Dirt. So those are the books for grade 1. And, those are really simple, easy to understand books for that age level. And then the books selected for grade 5, for natural history, they're going to read Miss Ladybird's Wildflowers, Nature All Around, Plants, Shenlea's Quest Card Game, The Bat Scientists, and Beetle Busters. And then for general science, they're going to read The Hive Detectives, Chronicle of a Honeybee Catastrophe, Eye of the Storm, NASA, Drones, and the Race to Crack the Hurricane Code, and Mission to Pluto, the First Visit to an Ice Dwarf and the Kuiper Belt. And then they include the link for the grade 5 lab book. So now let me just show you a closer look. I'm going to briefly go over the lesson plans and the guide with you, and you can see what a science lesson will look like. So here is the Alveary Science Grade 1. It just talks about the course. It says that the study of science is one of the primary ways children develop relationships with the things of the universe. Grade 1 to 3 students are at the beginning of this relationship, developing familiarity and friendship with creation. In this grade 1 course, students learn methodically about the variety of creatures around them through natural history. They explore habitats and meet some less similar things from those habitats during general science. This extends their knowledge and appreciation of the things around them, stimulates curiosity in things unknown, and builds practical skills in science inquiry. Outdoor work firmly roots their knowledge in their development and community building, a strong foundation for future growth. Digital resources for outdoor work are provided with lessons. And the big picture is to accomplish the goal of supporting a relationship with the things of the universe. A Mason science program consists of nature lore, natural history, and general science, which is what I've talked about. And then they just talk about placement. So this is for grade 1. Or those still growing in their attention span and interest of books. So if you have a student that's not quite ready to move forward, they could also begin in grade 1. They just have the scheduling here. So for nature study, it's 1 time a week for 10 minutes. General science is 1 time a week for 15 minutes. Then they recommend 30 plus minutes for a nature walk 1 time a week at least. And then 10 plus minutes and 1 plus times a week. So you could do it more often for their nature notebooking. And this is just a sample schedule. So you might want to do nature history on day 1, general science on day 2, nature walk and scouting on day 4, and nature notebooking on day 5. Just an idea. They just talk now about the planning and prep. And then this is where they talk about how the nature lore will be included in literature this year. These are special topics that you're going to be looking at during your field trips. So in term 1, they're specifically going to be looking at insects, especially ants, bees, and birds. In term 2, they're going to be looking at squirrels and spiders. In term 3, they'll look at insects again. And in general science, these are the special topics. They'll be looking in term 1, insects, flowers, bats, evenings, and a pond. In term 2, seeds and animal homes, evenings and a pond. And term 3, spiders, birds, flowers, evenings, and a pond. So this is how they want you to prep. And so that you can do the object lessons and give them some prompts and things to specifically look at, you're going to read the Handbook of Nature Study. And these are the pages that they want you to read. So in term 1, these are the ones that will help you prepare to learn more about ants, if you don't know about ants, as well as bees, squirrels, and lightning bugs. And the same thing with general science. You will also read about these topics in the Nature Study Handbook as well for term 3. And then they just give you reminders if there's something that you need to be prepared for ahead of time. So in week 8 of term 2, you're going to need some fresh fruit. So they're letting you know ahead of time for that lesson. You need to prepare for that. And these are just the names of the books. And then these are going to be the quick links through the QR code that you will have access to for videos, links, everything that you'll need to complete the whole science program. Printouts, lots of different kinds of things like that. So this is also just the general how to teach this program. This is the same for all of their subjects. So if you watched my previous video, you'll see that you're going to begin the class by introducing the topic of the day. You're going to read the lesson. You're going to get your student to narrate back. You're going to discuss together with your students the concepts and help them think about anything that they may have found confusing within the passage. And then you're going to help them connect to those ideas. And they provide you extra links to help them further connect and think about the things that they can engage with. And then we begin. we'll look at the actual lesson plan. So this is grade 1, term 1, week 1. You'll begin with your 10 minutes of natural history, lesson 1. It says there's an evening chorus, so I think that would be a link for that. And and the materials you need are your Christian Liberty Reader. So you're gonna look at this picture as an introduction, this picture on page 128, and you're gonna ask them, have you ever been outside in the evening? What did you notice? And briefly share a word or a picture. Then you're going to read the passages to them. So it's just 2 pages that you'll be reading. And then you're going to get them to narrate. Now, where they have these quotations, it means that that's where you're going to begin the passage. And if you're not completing the whole page 128 to 129, it'll tell you what line to end on. And you would pick up from there in the next lesson. And then they also have, in this column to the right, they will include any extra activities that they recommend. So this is for their weekly walks and daily outdoor time. They want you to do this, and they have quick links for ideas of what can help you be successful in your outdoor time. So then the next part of the lesson, which you might do on a different day, or you could do on the same day if you are able to or want to, 15 minutes of general science. You're going to listen to the chorus activity. That would have been the one from the day before. And then the materials you need are your nature journal. You're going to use your time today to sit in a spot, maybe with your eyes closed, and just listen to the sounds of nature for 7 to 10 minutes. So they're listening. Then they're going to narrate back about what they heard. And you're going to get them to journal about it. And you're going to ask them what sounds were the loudest. What sounds did you hear the most often? Were there any that you had to listen to very closely to hear? Do you know who heard? Do you know where they live? And there's a teacher tip here about if students seem anxious or unsure about their nature journal, teachers can encourage them by modeling and showing them many different examples. So I had actually printed off different pictures and images that I found of different nature journals so that they could see different styles and ways that they could make it their own. And then week 2, natural history, they'll be talking about the ant. Again, reading from the Christian Liberty Nature Reader. You're going to read them this intro and show them a picture and talk about it. Have you watched an ant before? What did you notice? Briefly share in a word or a picture. That's for you to share in a word or picture with them. You're going to read and narrate and then discuss what makes an ant, and some more teacher tips. So that is essentially what is in a grade 1 science lesson. And I thought I printed it, but I also was just going to show you the term exams. But essentially, there's just a question for term 1, term 2, and term 3 regarding this that you would ask them to either draw, narrate back questions related to what they learned about that year. And that would be the term exam. Now for grade 5, it becomes a bit more in-depth. So this would be the Form 2. So it'd be very similar from, grade 4 was very similar to this, but they talk about new and different topics. So the study of science is one of the primary ways children develop a relationship with the things of the universe. Grades 4 to 6, students extend the scope of the things they encounter and begin to notice that science is active in their world. They get to know favorite friends better while still meeting new ones. In this grade 5 course, students encounter botanical families, endangered species, invasive species, and secondary succession as they consider how man interacts with and thinks about the natural world. In general science, students engage with the chemical nature of things, meteorology, space exploration, and robotics as they practice beginning lab skills and expand their use of graphs. In all these lessons, they build vocabulary and conceptual knowledge by the way, and special care has been taken to maintain the connection between the scientific endeavors and the human experience. The roots of their outdoor work continue to strengthen and become more personal. Digital resources for outdoor work are provided within the lesson. So I won't read through all this for you, but that's just a general idea. Again, they just talk about nature lore and then the labs. Grade 5 labs, interaction with the things of the universe is an essential part of any science program. Beginning in Form 2, lab work supports this interaction in general science and builds foundational skills and habits for future science courses. So for placement, they say that ideally general science topics are completed in sequence because the ideas and skills are progressive like math or grammar. Teachers should read the lab book thoroughly to understand what concepts might be supplemented and that if they choose to do a different sequence or a substitution. If combining grades is desirable, it is recommended that the combined grades begin at the appropriate level and move forward together. Natural science is not in a particular sequence within this Form 2. So there is natural science, that's the nature study, but there's not a particular way that you need to go about it as in grade 1 where they're looking at very specific things. Here's the scheduling. So for grade 5, you are going to do natural history 1 time a week for 15 minutes. You're going to do general science 1 time a week for 20 minutes. You will do your lab 1 time a week for 30 minutes, and nature walks for 30 plus minutes, and nature notebooking. And then here's a sample schedule. So on day 1, you might do natural history, day 2, general science, day 3, labs, day 4, nature walks and scouting, and day 5, notebooking. For planning and prep, they just talk about the special field trips and what ideas you might have to look at, what you might read ahead in that same nature notebook hand guide to kind of help guide your students. So these are the things they were learning about this year: wildflowers, bats, trees, bees, climates, weather, storms, and stars. And a reminder about natural history. In term 1, natural history begins with planting a small garden. So you have to be sure that you have those supplies indicated in the supply list before you begin term 1. And the list of books. And they also include how to teach science labs in this. I'm not going to read through this, but it does give a very detailed idea. So for the labs, it's done independently. They're written to the student, and the lab gives instructions for how they should use their notebooks and create their tables. But again, as a parent, we can read through them and make sure that they understand all of the information properly. And it'll talk about how they should write their analysis and conclusions as well. So that is something that's also expected in their, they'll do the procedure and then an analysis and conclusion of the results of their procedure. So for term 1, week 1, they would begin 15 minutes of natural history, lesson 1, my own garden activity. So they're going to begin this garden activity that I mentioned earlier. And these are the materials that are needed. There'll be a video link. They'll need seeds, pots with soil, and etc. What did I see here? A trowel. I thought it said towel. Trowel and water. You're going to begin their own small garden. There's a couple of video links for them. They're going to do the activity, and then they're going to narrate and discuss what they did in this activity. In lesson 1 of general science, which could be done on a separate day, they're going to visit a hive. The materials are the Hive Detectives, the book. You're going to read the intro to them, ask some questions so that they can sort of become familiar with what the topic of the day is. Then you're going to read from the book, The Hive Detectives. It tells you where to begin and end, just like I mentioned before, and then they have a couple of video links that you would access through the QR code to learn more. And then in the next lesson, they are going to do the lab report. So it's natural history, general science, and then the lab. The lab is about what is honey. They give you the materials listed in the lab manual. And on the lab day, they're going to complete day 1 of what is honey as directed in the lab book. So it's very clearly written out. And in this column, there's always just a note for the teacher. Natural history lesson 2, and so forth. So the lessons look the same. Now let me just show you what the labs will look like. So I've gone ahead and printed the entire lab book for Hive Detective. And this would be done over several weeks to complete this. And it's very detailed. I'm actually quite impressed. This is far more detailed than our lab book was for grade 4, but of course this is a grade above, but significantly more detailed, I would say, actually. So for lab 1, And so this takes 4 weeks, this lab. They will be reading the introduction in the first lesson, and then it's going to get them to narrate what they just read about. So this is the main core of the deeper information behind the science. I won't go ahead and read it all to you, but just every substance is unique in some way. We identify each one primarily by how we perceive it through our senses. And it talks about chemists, how they take measurements and all these things. So this is sort of the main chunk of facts. The rest will be through their own observation. So they're going to narrate back in their own words, what they just read in this introduction and what they've read about through the hive detectives. These are the materials that they'll need for this one. So they will have 5 unknown substances, 5 small identical containers, 5 small spoons, 6 test tubes, test tube holder, test tube clamp, Alveary reagent, Benedict solution, Lugol's iodine, endophenol, pipettes, small saucepan, and heat source. You don't purchase these from the Alviary, but they obviously are things that you are able to purchase. This is procedure 1. So you're going to use this graph paper in your own notebook. They just put this here, so you're not doing it in this book, in this worksheet. You're going to draw out your own in your science notebook, and you're going to make a table for all of these unknown substances, and you're going to be documenting about the sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. And they're going to open the first unknown substance, and you're going to make qualitative observations using your senses. So it's asking you questions to describe each one. And then for the next step, you're going to be using the graph paper to document those things in their notebook. And you're going to, what was your hypothesis? I guess, what did you think was going to happen with this Benedict solution? Resulting color, positive test. Benedict solution undergoes a chemical reaction with simple sugars like glucose, and it will turn green if there is just a little glucose, orange with more, or red with a lot. So you're going to be making predictions based on what you think is in the substance that you are testing, and so forth. So I won't go through every single thing, but there are several steps, as you can see here, and each time they do a different test. So this is one with iodine. They're going to be documenting it in another table. This one is going to be using the Alveary reagent with another, then there's the table and questions in each step, how to use the Alveary reagent. This one's going to be with the endophenol. And then at the end, they're going to do an analysis and a conclusion, and it gives you questions that they need to ask themselves about each one. But that's about it, but that's quite detailed for a lab for grade 5, I believe. So that's all I have for you. I hope that makes sense, and I hope I didn't go through it too quickly for you. If you have any questions about it, please comment below. I would be more than happy to answer your questions. Again, we're not using it only because there were just some other science topics and details that I wanted to be able to teach my students this year. Although this looks very thoroughly and well planned out, we did have a lot of fun with it last year. It is very well done, and really, I have not yet seen a Charlotte Mason curriculum that goes into so much detailed planning and planning it out for you so that you really don't have any more work to do in your science curriculum. So it is well done. If you would like to know more about it, please comment below. If you have any other questions or would like to see other subjects from the Alviary, please let me know. I am going to be going through in this series several of them. I don't know that I'll be able to cover all of them. So if there is a specific one that you're interested in hearing about, please let me know.